Speaking to Jack Leaning after a draw here for Kent against Hampshire, just first of all, Jack, how satisfied are the guys to have come away with 11 points?
Yeah, look, we probably needed to win this game, but if we couldn't win it, we needed to get a decent draw out of the game, so we definitely take 11 points from it. And hopefully some results go our way and we can win the last two games to get a happy ending to the season.
You had to show some character as well. Having been 5 down at lunch wouldn't have been part of the plan, but yourself and Harry Finch with, I believe, a record partnership with the 6th wicket against Hampshire for Kent. So what was the thought process when you guys were out there together?
We quite like batting together, to be honest. We spend enough time together off the field, so it makes sense that we enjoy batting together. Just to see where the game took us, really. The nature of the pitch was quite slow. It wasn't particularly easy to score when they hit their lines, and they set some good fields. They're obviously a very good team as well. But as we got through the innings, they kind of changed a few tactics, which allowed us to score a bit easier. And no, we just wanted to kind of see where the game took us, and if we had an opportunity to try and push for a result, then brilliant. But unfortunately, it didn't go that way. And here we are.
Were you aware that Notts and Lancashire had lost while you were out there batting? Because at that point, it made a draw, almost a better result than having to chase a win.
Yeah, I mean, we got told at tea that they were looking both like they were going to get beat. So it kind of altered the game for us slightly. There was a conversation about trying to set a game up, or because obviously they were in the hunt to win the league, especially with the result down at Taunton. So it just didn't quite fall that way. And as it stands, a draw, albeit not the best result we could have hoped for this week, it's not a bad result, and it keeps us alive.
Just a word on a couple of the guys. Jazz Singh, for example, obviously him and George Garrett batted for 102 balls for their stands together in that first innings, and then Jazz has obviously come out and partnered Harry Finch in those crucial moments as well.
Yeah, little bits like that sometimes go unnoticed, especially when there's not a run value towards the back end as well. But the time taken out of a game allows us to bat differently and still drive the game ourselves. But the way, again, Jazz batted with Finch at the end there, it takes some time out of the game. It gives us a good opportunity of being able to get a draw, and all the pressure's on them to then go and win the game. It's just a shame we couldn't have done that a bit earlier in the game. I think we've had the same conversation a few times this year. But look, there's still 2 games to go, and if we can get a couple of positive results, who knows where the season will finish, because if we sat here and said I had the same conversation the last 2 seasons and we're still in Division 1, so there's still hope yet.
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit miracle territory, but you have given yourselves a shot when Nottinghamshire come here next week, of course.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, that we play them next week. If we can get a really positive result out of that and win, we go into Durham last week with hopefully everything in our hands. And as long as it's in our hands, we'll fight to do everything we can to stay in the division.
I guess as professional players, you've just got to keep believing, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what happens, it's professional pride. You want to beat and win against anybody you come up against and play well. So I don't think that'll deter any of the lads, regardless of what happens next week. But as you've seen over the course of the last couple of years, we're a fighting group when we're our backs up against the wall. So hopefully that comes to fruition the next 2 weeks as well.
And for yourself, every time you got to 50 in the Championship this year, you've converted it to 100. That's not too bad.
No, well, long may that continue. I've had a lot of times in my career where I've got 50s, 60s, 70s and not quite gone on. So it's nice that this year I've managed to kind of get that off my back a little bit and go on. It always seems to be against Hampshire as well for some reason, which is always quite nice. But yeah, hopefully I've still got another couple in me towards the back end of the year, and hopefully make some positive contributions with the bat.
And just a word as well on your outgoing head coach, Matt Walker, obviously that news that dropped in last week that he'll be leaving you at the end of the season. Is there a little bit amongst the group that want to do everything we can in Matt Walker's final few games to back him?
Yeah, I mean, Walks, he's a massive part of the dressing room. Yes, he's our head coach, but he's also a lot of our friends as well. And we want him to finish on a high note, albeit it's not a championship and it's not a necessarily positive way to finish the season. But I know the boys are dead keen, even more so than they would be anyway, to get some positivity out at the end of the season, to give him the send-off that he deserves from the club he's been at for, I think, 8 seasons now. He's obviously won trophies, he's been head coach, and he's seen a promotion in that time. He's certainly reinvigorated my love for the game as a player as well, which I'll always cherish and forever value. He's a belting bloke, and sad to see him leave, but as is the nature of sport, things take a change sometimes. Now we want to do everything we can to send him off on a high.